Just like that, we have only 1 week left to the college football season. I have absolutely no idea where the time went, but yet another fantastic season is getting ready to wrap up. So here's my top 25 as we enter week 13 of the college football season. Before I get to today's rankings, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are that you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. I'll be posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. Staying at number 1 is Georgia, but they had a pretty close game against Kentucky. They led the entire way and won by 10 points, but the Wildcats really had a chance late in this game to make things interesting. The Georgia defense stepped up when they needed to, as they held the Wildcats to only 6 points and fewer than 300 yards of offense. Not the ideal showing from Georgia, considering they were a 23-point favorite to win, but they're just one victory away from wrapping up the regular season undefeated. Ohio State knocked off Maryland by 13 points, but the Buckeyes were on upset watch. They actually trailed in this game entering the half, and led by only 3 points midway through the fourth quarter. But the Ohio State defense stepped up when it mattered most, including the final drive when they were able to force a turnover and score a touchdown that put the game out of reach. Ohio State is undefeated and 11-0 on the season, but with the exception of their game against Indiana, they've had some close contests against Penn State, Northwestern, and Maryland over the last month. Michigan picked up their 11th win of the season and remained undefeated, but they needed a game-winning field goal to knock off Illinois. After trailing entering the fourth quarter, Michigan was able to knock down 3 field goals that ultimately gave them the victory. Their season came down to the final drive, as a 4th down would have ended the game and pretty much crushed Michigan's playoff hopes. But they were able to pull through and pull off the come-from-behind victory, moving to 11-0 on the season as they get ready to face Ohio State next week. Keeping up the trend of teams on upset watch, TCU defeated Baylor by 1 point thanks to a game-winning field goal. Late in the fourth quarter, it looked like Baylor was going to pull off the upset, but TCU managed to come from behind and knock down the field goal as time expired. Max Duggan had nearly 400 yards of offense with 2 touchdowns, as he had to pretty much do everything for the Horned Frogs in this game. It wasn't a pretty victory, but TCU was able to keep their playoff hopes alive, as they're one of only 4 teams that is still undefeated this year. USC was on upset watch as well, and they had a game-winning interception with less than a minute remaining. They took down the Bruins 48-45 in a crazy offensive battle that saw both teams exchanging blows. Caleb Williams had the game of his life with over 500 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns. Like I said, USC was able to pick up the game-winning interception on the final drive in the final minute, keeping their playoff hopes alive. We finally have a team in the top 6 that wasn't on upset watch at any point in this game. LSU took care of UAB as they won by 30 points. Jaden Daniels had another fantastic game for the Tigers as he had over 400 yards of total offense with 2 touchdowns. Clemson picked up one of their better wins of the season as they took down Miami by 30 points. DJ Uiagalelei had 300 yards of offense with 3 touchdowns. Overall, the Clemson defense had one of the best games we've seen by any team in all of college football this season. They held Miami to only 6 first downs and only 98 yards of total offense. Alabama handled business as they won 34-0, and I think that's all we really need to say about this game. Oregon bounced back after last week's loss to Washington with a thrilling 3-point victory over number 10 Utah. It looked like the Ducks were going to lose this game, but their defense was able to hold things down in the fourth quarter as they were able to win by 3 points. Bo Nix was hurt, but he was able to do just enough for the Ducks as he had 300 yards of offense with the touchdown. Although last week's loss eliminated the Ducks from playoff contention, they can finish their season on a very high note. If they beat Oregon State this weekend, they'll face USC in the Pac-12 title game. Penn State is quietly having a solid season as they knocked off Rutgers by 45 points. Most of their damage came on the ground as they rushed for 250 yards with 3 touchdowns as a team. But it was the Nittany Lions defense that really showed up in this game. They held Rutgers to only 9 first downs and 10 points while holding them to only 160 yards of total offense. Although Penn State doesn't have a shot of reaching the Big Ten title game, they've easily been the 3rd best team in the conference this season. Tennessee had their playoff hopes crushed as they lost to South Carolina 63-38. This loss was actually pretty historic. South Carolina's 63 points were the most points scored by an unranked team in a win against a top 5 opponent in 100 years. Hendon Hooker tore his ACL and is out for the season, as if things couldn't get any worse for Tennessee. Now the crazy thing is, usually when you have 31 first downs, score 38 points, and have more than 500 yards of total offense, you'll win the game. But the defense allowed more than 600 yards on the night. After being the #1 team in the country, Tennessee has now lost 2 of their last 3 games. After losing 2 of 3 games and falling out of playoff contention, Kansas State has won back-to-back games and picked up some pretty quality victories. They took care of business against West Virginia and won by 17 points. With the absence of Adrian Martinez, Will Howard stepped up and had 300 yards of offense with 3 touchdowns for the game. With a win this weekend, Kansas State will face TCU in the Big 12 title game. Washington picked up the easy victory over Colorado as they won 54-7. For the game, the Huskies rushed for 300 yards with 5 touchdowns on the ground. Overall, they held the Buffaloes to only 200 yards of offense and forced 2 turnovers. All season, we've been talking about USC, Oregon, and Utah as being the best teams in the Pac-12, but Washington is still alive in the Pac-12 title hunt. Utah suffered another close loss as they fell on the road to Oregon by 3 points. The difference maker in this game was Cameron Rising, as he threw 3 costly interceptions. Had he not thrown 1 or 2 of them, Utah likely escapes Autzen with a victory. But their Pac-12 title chances were shot with this loss. Notre Dame took down Boston College, winning 44-0. Nearly all of the production on offense came on the ground as they rushed for 300 yards with 4 rushing scores. This was an impressive showing from the Notre Dame defense as they held Boston College to only 10 first downs and 170 yards of total offense. For the game, the Irish also forced 5 turnovers. Notre Dame is having one of the strangest seasons we've seen in college football this year. They've won 8 of their last 9 games, but they have losses to Marshall and Stanford. Had it not been for those losses, they'd likely be fighting for a playoff spot at this point. Florida State won with ease against Louisiana as they won 49-17. The Seminoles rushed for 250 yards with 5 rushing scores, while Jordan Travis threw for 100 yards with a passing touchdown, needing only 14 pass attempts for the game. I mean, this game was out of reach early on as Florida State was up 35-3 at halftime. After climbing inside the top 10 and being a potential playoff threat, UCLA has now lost back-to-back games and has fallen out of Pac-12 contention. They were in this game until the final drive and had a chance to win, but they fell to the Trojans by 3 points. Dorian Thompson-Robinson did all he could as he totaled 400 yards of offense with 6 total touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions that cost the Bruins the game. Tulane bounced back after last week's loss with a 59-24 win over SMU. Michael Pratt had himself quite the day as he totaled 6 touchdowns for the Green Wave. With a win this week against Cincinnati, Tulane's going to be in the driver's seat to be a Group of 5 representative in the New Year's Six. Oregon State continues to be one of the more impressive turnarounds in all of college football as they picked up their 8th victory with a 31-7 win against Arizona State. Although the Beavers aren't competing for the Pac-12 title this season, they've been one of the more impressive teams in the entire conference, and like I mentioned, have had one of the biggest turnarounds in all of college football over the last couple of years. Cincinnati had an easy win over Temple as they won 23-3. Offensively, Cincinnati didn't do that much, but they didn't need to as they held the Owls to only 3 points and 200 yards of total offense. Like I mentioned, Cincinnati and Tulane face off this week, with the winner playing in the American Championship game and likely going to a New Year's Six bowl game with a victory. North Carolina fell at home to Georgia Tech in a game that they honestly should have won. In the final minutes of the game, Josh Downs dropped an easy touchdown that would have put the Tar Heels ahead and likely would have won them the game. Still, the Tar Heels lost and were eliminated from playoff contention. Drake May, who was a Heisman contender, had his worst game of the season, throwing for only 200 yards with no touchdowns and an interception. After emerging as a threat in the SEC and a potential playoff sleeper, Ole Miss has now lost 3 of their last 4 games after losing on the road to Arkansas. Now, it's actually pretty insane that Ole Miss lost this game, considering they had over 700 yards of total offense. Yep, you heard that right. Ole Miss had 700 yards of offense, 32 first downs, but lost the game. Hell, on the ground, they had over 460 yards and had 2 players rush for more than 200 yards. The difference maker was the 3 costly turnovers that really hurt Ole Miss. South Carolina is one of the stranger teams in all of college football this year. They lost 2 of their first 3 games to start the season, but rattled off 4 consecutive victories. Then they lost 2 of 3 to some questionable teams in Missouri and Florida, but they somehow knocked off number 5 Tennessee this weekend in dominating fashion. Spencer Rattler had the best game of his career as he completed 30 of 37 passes for 450 yards with 6 passing touchdowns. Coastal Carolina had their game canceled against Virginia, but I still have them inside the top 25. Wrapping up my rankings is Texas, who defeated Kansas 55-14. For the game, the Longhorns rushed for over 430 yards and had 6 touchdowns on the ground. Most of that came courtesy of Bijan Robinson, who rushed for 250 yards with 4 touchdowns. It's been an up and down season for Texas so far this year, but they still have a chance of reaching the Big 12 title game next weekend. Well, there's my top 25 as we enter the final week of the college football season. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the rankings. Was there a team I had ranked too high, or a team that was ranked too low, or was there a team not even on the list that should have been on here? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments down below. Before you leave, make sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos every day during the season, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, make sure to drop a like on this video as well. It helps with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.